My sophomore year of high school, I was best friends with a girl named Lizzie. Lizzie is half Colombian, and her dad, grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins all live in Colombia. Because of this, Lizzie goes down to Colombia about once a year to visit. She had plans to visit her dad in July, and she invited me to come with her. I didn't expect my parents to go for it, but to my surprise, they said it was okay. Lizzie and I are going to fly down to Cartagena, Colombia by ourselves to stay with her dad for 10 days. Other than a day trip to Canada when I was little, I had never been out of the country before this. I had no idea what to expect. All I knew was that I was excited to finally travel somewhere, but nervous because I took French in high school, so the only Spanish I knew was basic vocabulary from a couple classes in grade school. This was my chance to finally do something completely out of my comfort zone. Because Lizzie's family actually lives in Colombia, I knew that this was going to be more than just a tourist vacation. Even though I was going with my best friend, I still felt like I was doing this partially on my own, because Lizzie had spent so much time in Colombia before, and she was fluent in Spanish. According to Aldous Huxley, English writer who is best known for his novel Brave New World, to travel is to discover that everyone is wrong about other countries. This is entirely true. It is impossible to know what life is like in a country outside of your own unless you have directly experienced life in that country. Before I went to Colombia, I thought of it as a poor country that partook in a lot of illegal drug activity. I had no idea about its culture, customs, or ways of daily life. It was not until I traveled there that I realized that there is a lot more to Colombia than just drugs and poverty. From the moment I stepped out of the airport, I could already see the differences of Colombia's culture. There were wild dogs roaming the streets, women carrying baskets of fruit on their heads, and men approaching cars to offer window washing services for money. All this, and I hadn't even arrived at Lizzie's dad's house yet. There are a few things that I noticed almost immediately upon arriving in Cartagena. First of all, there were not really any individual houses like people have where I'm from. Most people live in apartment buildings. One thing that Lizzie explained to me about Colombia is that there is not a middle class like there is in the United States. People in Colombia either have money or they don't. Those who have money are the ones who live in apartments. Some apartments are bigger and nicer than others, but everybody who lives in them has some sort of money. Those who are poor live in either small, rundown houses or shacks. It is also extremely common for Colombian families to have one or more maids. Maids clean, cook, and do laundry because it is actually cheaper to hire a maid than it is to own a washing machine in Colombia. Throughout the next 2 weeks, I was immersed in the culture of Cartagena. I learned that the people of Colombia find it acceptable to openly stare at each other, and it is not considered rude to call someone fat. The main language of Colombia is Spanish, and instead of shaking hands, Colombians kiss each other on the cheek as a greeting. This took a little getting used to, but by the end of the trip, I was able to understand a fair amount of Spanish, and it was almost second nature to greet people in the proper fashion. A big difference between Colombia and America is the food. In America, most of the food we eat is processed, prepackaged, or artificially grown and treated. In Colombia, most of the food is freshly grown and prepared. Our meals in Colombia generally contained some kind of seafood, because we were right on the ocean, rice, and different kinds of fresh fruit. It is also typical to drink fresh fruit juice with meals as opposed to soda. Because Cartagena is located right on the ocean, people find sources of entertainment in ways different than those in many parts of the U.S. While I was in Colombia, I went jet skiing, snorkeling, scuba diving, swimming, windsurfing, and tubing. It is true that you can do all of these in the U.S., but it is more common to do those things in Colombia than it is at home. Lizzie and I also had the opportunity to climb to the top of a volcano and go inside of it. The volcano had not been active in years, but it was filled to the top with warm volcanic ash that was soothing and therapeutic to the skin. Never in my life would I have thought of sitting inside of a volcano for fun. Not everything in Colombia was different from the United States. The movies and theaters there were the same as they were at home, only they were in Spanish as opposed to English. They also had many of the same stores and businesses, such as Blockbuster, and they wore many of the same types of clothing and drove many of the same types of cars as they do in the U.S. According to Global Links Learning Abroad, a website with over 20 years of experience working within the field of international education, there are many different benefits of traveling abroad. These benefits include language acquisition or improvement, increased independence and self-reliance, and increased self-confidence. All of these are very true. When you travel somewhere with a culture that is completely foreign to you, you are forced to adapt. This is something that you need to accomplish on your own, because nobody else can force you to feel comfortable. You have to be confident in yourself and know that you have the skills to communicate and function in another country and culture. By actually going to Colombia and surrounding myself with the culture, I learned so much more than I ever could have from a book. I got to experience firsthand both the similarities and the differences between Colombian culture and my own. I gained confidence in my ability to communicate, and I learned that it may be intimidating to step outside of what is comfortable, but that is the only way to understand how different life is in another part of the world. Traveling abroad was an eye-opening experience that I think everyone should try to experience at least once.